While being an imperial concubine offered the allure of luxurious clothing, abundant food, and the potential to become Empress of China, the cons were grim. These women, numbering in the billions, were essentially treated as disposable birth-givers for the emperor. In this video, we will be talking about the brutal life of disposable birth-givers, or the Chinese Concubines. Let's start, shall we? The Concubinage, the tradition of concubinage, widespread in monarchies globally, reached its peak in Imperial China, tracing back 3,000 years to the Zhao dynasty. The royal court was known to accommodate hundreds, if not thousands, of women intimately associated with the emperor. Their primary duty was to produce offspring, in case the empress couldn't deliver a male heir. The regulations surrounding court concubines varied over time, with some dynasties imposing limits on the number permitted for an emperor, while others allowed unlimited acquisition. The Hangwu emperor, born as Zhu Yingzan, surpassed his predecessors by defeating the Mongols and establishing the Ming Empire, 1368-1644. However, his accomplishments came at the expense of immense oppression and tyranny. Hongwu initiated a despotic tradition, implementing reforms that granted him personal control over all state affairs and supreme power over all women, perceiving them as mere commodities. Upon entering the imperial court, concubines found themselves in a precarious position. They ranked below the empress, but above servants, effectively serving as slaves. While their primary purpose was to fulfill the emperor's desires and produce male heirs, the double standards were infuriating. The emperor could have as many women as he desired, yet concubines were prohibited from interacting with other men and subject to continuous supervision by court eunuchs. Punishments for even the slightest transgressions were severe, ranging from banishment to execution. The possessiveness of emperors, like the Hangwu emperor, was evident in the reinstatement of an ancient rule, stipulating that upon his death, his concubines would meet the same fate. The Forbidden City, constructed during the 1360s, became a gilded cage for concubines, where some emperors housed hundreds, others thousands, and a few as many as 20,000. So, how did these women typically find themselves in the palace? Selecting partners. Women were selected as xiunu, elegant females, for the court as early as the Jin dynasty, 265-420 AD, and the selection criteria ranged from emperor to emperor. In the Ming dynasty, for example, no household was exempt from the selection. According to statutes, all young unmarried women went through xiunu selection process. Only girls who were married or with certified physical disabilities or deformities were exempt. However, the Qing Emperor Shunji, 1638-61, began to exclude most of the Han population by limiting selection to 8 banners families, who were mainly Manchurian and Mongolian. The Board of Revenue sent notices to officials in the capital and provincial garrisons to enlist the help of clan heads. The banner officials then submitted a list of all available females to the commander's headquarters in Beijing and to the Board of Revenue. The Board of Revenue then set the date for selection. Requirements for selection. In the Qing dynasty, girls were brought to the Shenwu, martial spirit, gate of the Forbidden City, for inspection on the designated day, accompanied by their parents, nearest relatives, clan heads, and local officials. They underwent a rigorous selection process. In the initial round, the women were organized in lines of 100 based on age, with 1,000 eliminated for being too tall, short, fat, or thin. On the second day, eunuchs meticulously examined the women's bodies and assessed their voices and general demeanor, reducing the field by another 2,000. The third day focused on observing their feet and hands, as well as their grace of movement, resulting in the elimination of another 1,000. The remaining 1,000 underwent gynecological examinations, leading to the dismissal of another 700 from the process. The remaining 300 were then housed in the palace, where they underwent a month-long series of tests evaluating intelligence, merit, temperament, and moral character. The top 50 candidates faced further examinations and interviews in subjects such as mathematics, literature, and art, and were ranked accordingly. The 3 favorites received the highest ranking for imperial concubines. Only a few who endured this rigorous process would catch the emperor's attention and win his favor. Most would experience bitter loneliness, and unsurprisingly, politics and jealousy were rampant among concubines. Beauty proved more of a curse than a blessing during this period in Chinese history. Now let's discuss activities. Naturally, concubines were strictly prohibited from engaging in sexual activities with anyone other than the emperor. Their actions were closely overseen and monitored by the eunuchs, who held significant power in the palace. Before the emperor visited their bedchamber, concubines were required to bathe and undergo examination by a court doctor. With hundreds, and sometimes thousands, of concubines at the emperor's disposal, any lady favored with a visit would face jealous rivalries. Concubines had their own rooms and spent their days applying makeup, sewing, practicing various arts, and socializing with one another. Many spent their entire lives in the palace without any contact with the emperor. There was also a strict hierarchy throughout the years. The Qing dynasty harem system started with the empress at the topmost position. Then it went down in ranks, ending with second-class female attendants. The ranking remained consistent, but the number of consorts and concubines varied under different emperors. Polygamy. Polygamy was common practice in feudal China, although only upper and wealthy middle-class men could afford to take several wives. It was seen as an affirmation of male potency, and the presence of many women was taken to indicate a man's virility. The emphasis was on procreation and the continuity of the father's family name. Confucianism emphasized the ability of a man to manage a family as part of his personal growth in daxue, great learning. In the case of the emperor, guaranteeing a successor to the throne was of paramount importance. The four principles of polygamy in feudal China were: 1. The strict distinction between main wife and concubines. The main wife was superior to all other wives. She was responsible for submitting to the higher principles of polygamy and mentoring the other wives in harmonious behavior for the greater good. 2. Women must not be jealous. Women, especially the main wife, had to rise above their earthly emotions. The belief that they were living for a higher purpose presumably helped displace feelings of bitterness, jealousy, and rivalry. 3. Attachment could radically destabilize polygamy. The husband should not have a favorite, nor should any of the wives monopolize the man. Love had to be distributed evenly among the wives, which effectively meant that passionate attachment was not acceptable. 4. Polygamy could only survive by observing a strict hierarchy. Each dynasty had its own set of titles and ranks for the imperial wives. The empress ranked at the top, with more wives filling successive echelons below her. Most wives occupied the lower echelons. The hierarchy was determined at specific times, such as when a new wife joined the imperial family and was assigned a rank. Moving on, emperor's sexual rotation. It was deemed crucial to the overall well-being of the Chinese Empire to organize the emperor's intimate life. In the 10th century, Chinese calendars served not to mark time, but to regulate the emperor's sexual schedule. The rotation of concubines sharing the emperor's bed followed a meticulous order. Secretaries were employed to document the emperor's sexual encounters, using brushes dipped in imperial vermilion. Moon cycle. In China and certain other Asian countries, age was calculated from the moment of conception, not birth. The Imperial Chinese belief held that women were most likely to conceive during the full moon, when the yin, or female influence, matched the yang, or male force, of the emperor. The empress and other wives slept with the emperor around the time of the full moon, as it was believed that children of strong virtue would be conceived on those nights. Lower-ranking concubines were tasked with nurturing the emperor's yang with their yin, sleeping with him around the time of the new moon. The fate of a favorite Zhenfei entered the palace in 1899 during the Guangxu reign at the age of 13. Later promoted to the title of Imperial Concubine, second only to Empress Longyu, who was the niece of Empress Dowager Cixi, Zhenfei was a beautiful and intelligent woman. As the favorite consort of the Guangxu emperor, she wielded considerable influence in the imperial court. Widely known as the Pearl Consort, she harbored a disdain for rules and regulations. Her acts of rebellion infuriated Cixi, who sought an excuse to punish her. On June 20th, 1900, the Eight-Nation Alliance besieged Beijing, and Cixi compelled the emperor to flee with her to Xi'an. Before their departure, Cixi ordered Zhenfei to commit suicide, arguing that her youth and beauty would endanger the royal party and bring shame if she were assaulted by foreign soldiers. Zhenfei refused, requesting an audience with the emperor. It is believed that Dowager Cixi responded by instructing eunuchs to throw Zhenfei to her death down a well behind the Ningxia Palace. Shocking, isn't it? And that's it for this video. Please click the like and subscribe buttons down below if you found this interesting. To make sure you don't miss any uploads, tap the bell icon. Share the video with all your friends. Provide all of your feedback in the comments section. See you in the next one.